Hey! It
Hi!
worked.
Hey! A couple minutes late. Sorry about that.
You know, that's how it goes.
It happens.
Welcome to Daily Dose.
Hello, I'm Julie.
I'm Sean.
My
Father
hair is
MTO.
crazy curly.
Sormim.
Sormim. Sorry, I forget that part every time.
And today's Daily Dose is Divination.
Divination.
In all its forms and, well, not all. There's a ton.
Way too many for us to go over in one day.
I pulled up a list on a site that I've used before. And
Cool.
we would probably have time in a half an hour to just read the word with the description of all of them. And that's about it. So, yeah, there's a ton.
So,
but
hello.
Talk about some of the common ones.
Hope you're well. Hope everybody's feeling good.
It's a wizarding day.
It is a wizarding day. Yaha! Having fun.
We've been reading Harry Potter with our kids. And today was... So we're reading bits and then watching a movie, like just part of it. So we can really see the differences between the books and the movies. So we just finished watching for the first time with both our kids Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, part of it. So, yeah.
Reading along with the book.
I'm all wizardy today.
I'm not. It's a good look. It's a good look. I dig it.
Anyway.
So, what is divination?
Telling the future.
Telling the future?
Fortune telling.
That's fortune telling. But divining the future, or rather, knowing the future in some way.
Ooh, knowing.
On the essence of knowing. So, how can you know something?
Yeah, that's a hard thing to explain to people unless you've experienced. It's one of those things that unless you've experienced.
What is gnosis?
It's really hard to convey what it's like to always be right. Hashtag Leo.
Yeah, I had to break out some stats for him today that he didn't understand, but that's okay.
Oh, I was wrong on that. I admit it. I was doing my math wrong.
Saw it here first.
One and only time.
So yeah, one of the things that whenever I start to teach or talk to some of my students about divination or how to use divinatory tools, a thing that I always like to talk about first and foremost is that this is something we've been doing our whole lives since we were little, even since we were infants or children, seeing faces in clouds, seeing the trees move, listening, hearing voices within the wind is another example.
Deja vu.
Ooh, that's a whole different animal, I think. But even on the playground as children, doing he loves me not, or things like that. Or slapping a rose petal, or throwing a apple peel behind you to determine your lover's name or the first initial. So just things like that are ways that we've played with divination. Ways that we played with divination, or at least I did when I was a child, and different ways that I would determine patterns, or I would see different things within rocks or trees or bark, or even just on the ground, patterns within things, patterns within stone. So it's very simple, and we tend to overlook things, or we tend to be overwhelmed by different forms of divination and the information that goes along with it. Tarot, for example. There are so many associations, and depending on your practice, your tarot reading practice, and what traditions you follow, that can determine a whole other means of divination that you use. For example, using Hebraic or astrological associations, pathworking associations, that it can seem overwhelming. So just getting back to basics, I think, is one of the best advices I can give.
Yeah, I mean, when I read cards, I use those set associations as my base to spring from. But I pretty much always use that. And I know some people will just lay down the cards and they literally don't know any associations, don't have any associations other than maybe what they've built up over the years.
Right.
And they just say what they see when they lay the card over. It's just everybody's gift is a little bit different and works a little different for everybody.
Is it a gift or a skill?
Yes.
Yes. So even if you don't have any natural abilities toward divination, or you don't think that it's something that you can do, it's definitely something you can learn and work on and work toward getting better at.
Yep. So what's up first?
Ah.
We have a bunch of divination tools out here. We're going to talk about some of these and a lot of them that we may not even have or that you don't need tools for.
One of the things we don't have a tool for, so I can't really show and tell it, and the way that I do most of my divination is via dreams and dream work. So
Dreamomancy?
Sure. But I use a very specific process in determining how to get information in my dreams. So if you have questions on that, let us know. But this is just kind of a big, broad overview.
Yep.
Yes.
I think one method of divination that most people tend to turn their nose at a little bit is astrology.
Yeah, or horoscopes. People tend to discount horoscopes.
Well, because they lump those two together.
Right.
All horoscopes are astrology, but not all astrology is horoscopes. Yeah. Horoscopes have definitely given astrology a bit of a bad name because it's so general. And the more I work with astrology and the more I dig into and look at my own chart and learning, I mean, astrology is another one of those like tarot. There's a lot of pieces to that puzzle.
Determining which type of astrology you do as well.
And the more I learn and read about that, the more convinced I am that there's some heavy duty stuff there.
Oh, yeah.
In astrology.
Absolutely.
So, astrology is one.
No questions about it. Astrology. What about cartomancy?
Cartomancy.
Where's my other cards?
Cartomancy is divination via cards.
Yeah, haven't yet opened this deck, but just using a regular old card deck. And it's backwards. Sorry, Ken. Can be really, really beneficial. There's a lot you can do with just a plain old deck of playing cards. What about you? What's your preferred deck of choice?
Oh, tarot.
Tarot.
Yeah. And mine is probably my favorite one is the magical tarot, or not magical, initiatory tarot
of the Golden
Dawn. It's the one I probably use the most and enjoy. I have a whole bunch of different Golden Dawn styled decks and use...
Yeah, buddy.
Kind of pull out... When I do my meditations for those, I'll pull out the trumps from each one of them and do some comparisons and things and learn something from each one of them. But for reading, I really enjoy that one because the numbered cards are also pictures. Oh. Rather than just like, well, this is the 8 of Pentacles. So rather than there just being 8 pentacles, you have a picture that represents the esoteric meaning of the card, which this one is prudence. And so I really can see into the pictures that are there and identify with that a little better.
And we do write on this deck of cards, write on them different associations. I don't necessarily have a preferred deck of tarot cards, but I do love my Lenormand deck. I talked about this when we were doing show and tell, last week? I do love this deck quite a bit. So check that one out. I'll leave a link down below in the comments. I also use Herbal Tarot quite a bit. Michael Tierra's Herbal Tarot. I like this one a lot just because it also helps me see beyond what the tarot itself means, the imagery and the symbolism within the tarot itself, and associating it more with some of my plant allies that I maybe have forgotten about or am needing some of their insight or help for whatever question I have.
How about numerology?
Ooh. They're all mystic numbers.
You can make them say anything you want.
Why are there numbers on tarot cards? That's a great question. Come on, tarot teacher. I can give mine.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably a lot of different answers. The frame of reference. Now, if you want to talk historical and go back to the Marseille Tarot, did numbered playing cards influence the tarot, or did tarot influence numbered playing cards?
Well,
I mean, And I'm not a
numbered
tarot
playing cards
historian.
would have to be first.
Playing cards had to be first?
Yeah.
Why?
Before tarot.
Why?
Because playing cards were first.
Were they? I don't know.
Yeah.
I am not a tarot historian.
Yeah, I'm not either.
So I don't know. But I know, like in a Golden Dawn deck, we use the numbers on the cards to represent the Sephiroth of the Kabbalah that card relates
It's a Kabbalistic association.
Yeah. All of the aces are Kether, the twos are Hokmah, threes are Bina, the fours are Chesed, the fives are Geburah, and so on, till you get to the tens and Malkut. So those are associated to that, number-wise.
At least within that perspective and paradigm.
Yes.
And tradition of reading tarot. Yeah.
So
Numerology. Sean and I always get into this.
I'm not
argument, but
I don't think it's an argument. I think
all numbers are sacred, right? You can find some sort of association with every single
and you
number,
can make,
and then you can condense them down into.
If you read some of the numerology stuff for like some of the conspiracy theories and things people put up with, it's crazy. I mean, it's like, wow, you actually can prove pretty much anything with numbers,
and you can find an association to anything in the world down to a certain number if you wanted to, and if you manipulated things just right. So that's fun.
But I think the type of numerology that I do use and find valuable for me personally is Gematria.
Yes.
Gematria is a form of Hebrew numerology. In the Hebrew alphabet, the letters themselves, they don't have a separate numbers. So in our Latin alphabet, or our Romantic alphabet, we have A, B, C, D, and then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and those don't necessarily correlate to each other than that's the order that A, B, C, D falls into. But in Hebrew, they don't have specific numbers. Each letter represents a number. So you can take the value, you can take any word in the Hebrew alphabet and actually derive a value from it. And it's really interesting to look at other words
that match that value,
add up to that value, and you find linkages between those. And it's amazing how much those actually do link up. And you can go down some fantastic rabbit holes with that.
Yeah. Hours of rabbit holes. So, geomancy.
Geomancy. Yay!
Yay!
I love geomancy.
Go for it. What is geomancy?
Geomancy is a form of earth divination. Comes primarily from the Middle East, originally.
And again, it's backwards, but you can see each of the geomantic figures that can be associated.
Used to take a rod out in the sand and clear your mind, focus on,
take your frustrations out on it.
Kind of let your mind go free. Don't focus on your counting and just poke holes. Add up the holes, and you do, like, to get a single sigil, you do 4 rows. Count that up. So if you end up with 4, this really small number.
This is it, yeah.
4, 2, 4, 2, for example. Those are all even numbers, so they would all get 2 dots.
2 dots.
So that would be the geomantic. No, populus.
Populus. Yeah. No.
1
is via.
Ones would all be via.
Yes.
2s are all populus. Yep. So you derive these sigils, and and then to do a full geomantic reading, you need 16 of those. You add a bunch of them together, and you actually place them into an astrological chart. You read them like you would astrology, and it goes on. It takes a good hour to do a full geomantic reading, but to do a quick one to get one single sigil, it's a very accurate form of divination, by the way, too. One of the things that I do is I have these geomantic throwing sticks, and they're painted in the elemental colors because the geomantic sigils. Let's go back to that really quick. You can see that these are all the different sigils, the different combinations you can get by having 4 rows of 1 or 2 dots each. So you go through and derive these sigils. So the top one is related to air, the next one to fire, the next one to water, and the last one to earth. So you can throw combination of sticks, and on these there's 1 dot on one side,
and that association
2 on
is
the other
a little
side.
funky. We usually think of earth air, water, fire.
Yep. It goes in the
But
order
it goes
of density.
in the order of density.
Yep.
So it's
For
a little bit
geomancy.
different for geomancy. And you can use geomantic tools in a variety of ways. We have popsicle sticks.
We have dice.
Die.
We have coins.
Coins.
So basically, I can throw these 4 dice or these 4 sticks and get one entire geomantic sigil. Boom, right there. And then I need to derive 3 more of those. It only takes a few minutes. It definitely
Then you condense them down.
accelerates the process.
It's a very long process.
Yeah, but yeah, it's fun.
There's something, if you haven't gotten into geomancy, it's fun. It is eye-opening in many ways, and it's definitely a different form of divination that a lot of people aren't as familiar with.
It tends to be very accurate too. I mean, you get
Accurate.
a yes no. It's
or a very definitive direction in which to go.
Yep.
Depending on your question. Cool. One of my favorites and something that I do professionally are bone readings or throwing the bones.
Yay!
Yay! That's my fun stuff. One thing that I just tell everybody is do not be daunted by bone readings. Don't be scared or overwhelmed with it. It starts out really small as a really small process. So as you're obtaining your bones or your pieces, your curios, your shells, whatever else you want to hold in there. Some people strictly read bones and bones only. I add a little bit of everything. So I have seeds, nuts, branch sticks, shells, pebbles, different things that mean something or that have spoken to me or literally yelled at me out in nature.
Zip ties.
I don't buy any of my pieces. No, not zip ties. I don't buy any of my pieces. They've all been given to me either by friends or by nature.
Cool.
Cool.
We probably should throw out there all of the Claire gifts. And this is probably a whole nother daily dose on its own. But things like clairvoyance, clairaudience, claircognizance, clairsentience, all of those psychic Claire gifts all contain some element of divination to them. And again, there's like a list of like 30 of the Claire gifts, and we may do a separate daily dose on those at some point. And
you can hone those gifts and get better at those individual gifts, but you can also spontaneously start to have them. I know Sean has had some experiences where he would have some kind of gift, like clairgustance, for example, and be able to taste something. The
just
tears of an initiate,
thing,
for example, but then it kind of goes away. I would have instances where I would see things quite a lot when I'm not trying to see them, until I really honed my magical skills and practice to get rid of a whole bunch of astral junk and get rid of things around me. So things will morph and change as you start to work on some of these skills.
Well, and one of my students just this week sent a report, and she had been, she's been doing her daily work, and for the first time after doing a particular meditation, she made a glass of moon water, and when she went to drink it, she could see an aura around the moon water, and that was the first time she'd seen an aura. And I asked her, I was like, is this something you've seen before, or is this a one-time thing, or is this a first-time thing? She said she had seen some things before, but this was the first time she really could see something that was very definitive. So these gifts, through initiation and awakening of energies and practice, can develop themselves. Sometimes a gift is given almost immediately and in full bore, and I've had that experience. But then sometimes it's a process of development.
Process. But that's a lot of those.
Yes.
Runes. Runes are something that I don't work a whole lot with.
I did when I was younger.
It's just not something that I've really had a whole lot of impetus to study or do a whole lot with. However, I've had some crazy experiences with runes.
Yes, indeed.
What's
a Futhark?
Well, what's a Futhark? Well, I know that there's the elder and the younger Futhark. Just kidding.
No, it's true.
Yeah, it's true, but these are cute.
So these are some runes. We've had
wood-burned.
Those of you who have followed us and seen our first Daily Dose episode.
This is my favorite rune. I do know that.
We ran a Fehu.
Yeah, good job.
Yay. We ran a brick and mortar store for 5-6 years, metaphysical, and we had numerous experiences with a spirit that was in the building that our shop was in, And we would come in and bags
Of runes.
not like multiple ones at once, but different bags at different times. The rune bags would be broken open and the runes would be strewn all around the floor. And we would make a point of writing down
taking pictures.
the runes that were, face up that you could actually read every time that happened.
There's some really interesting insights.
So we've had some experiences with runes, but
Not
neither one of us
I
are
do on a regular basis.
experienced rune readers. I actually did a lot when I was a teenager, but
if you are, let us know.
Many years.
Yeah. Let us know what runes are. What do you do with runes? What are the benefit of working with runes over another form of divination or a divinatory tool? Cool. What
else we got?
Ooh, I have one.
What you got?
Dowsing rods. Is this divination?
Yeah.
Yes. So
Absolutely.
how do you use these?
I don't know. They're yours.
I'm trying to prompt you to talk to the camera. So you walk around with these, and whether they go apart or go together, which they don't seem to be wanting to do right now, can give you information. They used to use something akin to this for searching for water, gold, all kinds of other things, even lost objects, lost people.
Quite a bit of folk magic and tales from the 17 and 1800s in America with people using divining rods.
I know, like my divining rods.
All right. How about, what else do we have? What we talked about yesterday, scrying.
Scrying. We were debating whether or not that we should include scrying again today.
Got a bowl of water.
Mm-hmm.
Got a black mirror.
Our black mirror back there.
But yeah, if you're interested in scrying, go watch yesterday's Daily Dose.
Was that just yesterday?
Yep, Daily Dose of Scrying. And we talked about scrying for the whole episode. That's twice.
That wand does not want to stay in
Third
your
time's
hands.
charm. So yeah, scrying is a method of viewing other places or viewing and communicating with spirits. There's a whole bunch of stuff there. But yeah, like I said, it's definitely a form of divination. And if you want to know more about it, check out yesterday's Daily Dose.
You used to fool with the ohm, huh? Just fool around with them. Kenny, it's so like you.
How about... Here's one that I know almost nothing about.
I know something.
Palmistry. Yeah, buddy. Yeah, I don't know anything about palm reading except that my hand... Well, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So, when she got pregnant with our youngest daughter, I think you were maybe 2 months along, all of a sudden, I've never had skin problems or anything. My hands started itching, and I would scratch them in my sleep until they would bleed. And then I developed these huge calluses on top of everything. And the only thing that I know about palm reading is a fairly experienced palm reader told me that my palm lines were rewriting themselves. And I definitely do have new lines that were not there before. So I would love to chat with somebody who knew a lot about palm reading.
I don't know a lot. What I do know, I learned...
And I still have some itchiness and some stuff sometimes, but they're actually really clear right now. Yeah. So anyway, that's my story and I'm sticking to it.
The stuff I do know about and regarding palmistry, I learned when I lived in Guatemala. I studied abroad in Guatemala, in Quetzaltenango, forever ago. And my teacher there, she was very, for lack of a better word, spiritual, or what you could call.
But not a witch.
She was a bruja. She essentially was, but there's still that stigma that is carried along with it. And she was really scared to talk about it. It took me about 2 months of breaking her down and talking to her on a daily basis. I want to learn. And so she started out with just teaching me a little bit of palmistry. And I found that really interesting. And some of the techniques she taught me were how many children you would have based on certain lines on your dominant or non-dominant hand, love life, even death. She would tell me different things. I remember some of it, but not all of it. But I find it funny when I do, my cousins, for example, always ask me to see how many children they're going to have. And I'm always right. So it's pretty interesting. And I learned that 15 years ago.
How many stages going to have?
Well, it was 5, but it's now gone down to 4. So, but it changes.
All right. So, palm reading.
Yeah, buddy.
So.
Tasseomancy.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's fine.
That is definitely another one of my favorite ones. Something that I do on a regular basis.
That's tea leaf readings for you uninitiated.
Yeah. Tea leaf readings are, again, something that you can just find symbols and patterns within, and relative to the querent and to the cup and the spacing, can tell you a whole lot about timing, the direction that things are going, and whether or not things look positive or negative. Again, a lot of it is just symbolism and symbology, and figuring out what those individual symbols mean. Not just reading a book, for example, not just opening and saying, oh, a bird means this, or an anchor means this, but really associating those individual symbols within yourself. If you, for example, have a particular association with the serpent, for example, like I do, that would mean something different to me than if I were to just open a book and say, oh, serpent means knowledge. Sometimes it does, but to me it can also mean a whole host of other things. But it depends on the reader and the querent.
How about astraggalomancy?
Astraggalomancy? Like astragalus?
I had to look that one up, actually.
What is that? I don't know what that is. Ah!
Dice.
Well,
I know.
yeah.
I know. There's something else, but astraggalomancy is actually doing divination with dice.
So
throwing dice.
These are really cool. And Mark, if you're out there, thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
For these. I love these things. I haven't had a whole lot of chance to play with them, but I definitely want to.
I think it would fall under astraggalomancy, though. I mean, they're a form of dice.
Yeah, for sure. Cool stuff.
And then we have something like, how about psychometry?
Ooh.
Is that really...
I would say yes. It would be a form of divination.
You're looking at the past?
Or looking at the nature of an object itself. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily the past. If I find a ring out in the desert, for example, I can learn a lot of information just by holding it. Mm-hmm. Psychometry is a form of knowing by touching.
Indeed.
Yes. Speaking of holding something in my hand, I love this pendulum. This is my favorite pendulum.
Where'd you get it?
I got it from him.
Yay.
What is this? What is the stone?
That's sodalite.
Sodalite. So I'm not too attached to the stone itself. I don't work a whole lot with stones, but why I love this one is because it has a secret chamber in it.
It's chambered.
And for me as an herbalist, I tend to put a lot of different herbs, different pieces of animals, different bones or things that I need to within here to enhance some of my divination, or even bone readings if I need to, if I'm lost. One time I had a client doing a bone reading, and some people, they go pretty gently with it. Other people take the whole thing out of the bag and they have a whole host of trouble, and they throw literally every bone and every piece of stone and shell that I have in there onto the table. And it's a bunch of mess, which is indicative of their life. But for me to try to get in deeper with what that means, and I'm not having any luck with a clarifier tarot card or Lenormand card or something like that, I tend to have a pendulum beside me to point me into the direction of where I need to focus on within a reading like that, when things are just so messy and overwhelming.
I have found pendulum with tarot readings to be invaluable at times, mm-hmm. for sure. Helps point you in a direction.
Yes.
How about automatic writing?
Ooh, that's a good one. Or automatic drawing.
Or automatic typing.
Ooh, I've done that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I've been trying to write something magical, whether it be a ritual or whatever, and I hit a block, and I can't get through, and I can't push forward. Just start typing stuff, and all of a sudden it just flows. And
he, as a IT person, he's very technologically oriented. To him, that just things tend to flow through his fingers that way. With me, I have journals and notebooks and lists galore that are all handwritten.
Well, I handwrite
copies.
on my journals, though.
Yeah, but usually he prefers to have lists and things just electronically. I don't work that way. With planners, with things like that, I can't do that. I have to have it handwritten. There's something about the beauty of penmanship and writing things down. And touching paper and the way.
Yeah, automatic
and
writing
inks.
is just
I like ink.
starting to write words and try to feel like you're channeling something, communicating with an entity and writing it down.
Yeah. What else you got?
How about bibliomancy?
Bibliomancy. Ooh, let's do that right now. Shall we?
I don't know. Shall we?
I got a book. I'm rereading some of my old friends. Let's see if there is anything in here for the good of our viewers. Whoever is out there watching this, be it now or be it later, if you're watching this at a later date. After saying these things, sacrifice, then raise loud groans and then go backwards as you descend, and she will come at once. But pay attention to the arrival of one being attracted so that you may open the door for her. Otherwise, the spell will fail. This is on Sacrifice and Spirit Offerings and Techniques of Greco-Egyptian Magic by Skinner. Something.
So there you go.
Yeah. Whoever that is for you, it's not for me.
How about pyromancy?
Ooh. So pyromancy, that is the reading of fire?
Mm-hmm. Reading flames.
Reading flames, which is different than reading smoke.
Yes.
Okay. You want to tell our smoke story? That wasn't considered pyromancy, though, was it?
I don't know what that would be.
Well, here's the tale.
So there's a guy in Denver. He teaches...
Charles. Shout out to Charles Cox.
I was getting there.
Sorry.
He teaches great classes.
Yes.
He's more of a...
Psychic. Mediumship type of teacher.
His classes, though, thing about Charles is he's super entertaining. So if you have a chance and you're in Denver to go to any of Charles Cox's classes, he's fantastic.
Definitely go.
We used to go to a lot of his classes, probably because while we're extremely invested in our path, sometimes it's new to go outside your box. Mm-hmm. And Charles seemed to be a great one that taught a lot of things that the two of us were not familiar with. So we would both get a chance to see something kind of new. Mm-hmm. So we used to go to a lot of his classes. One of them was, I can't remember if he labeled it a pyromancy class or if it had a different name.
I don't remember.
But it was basically paper burning. You basically took a candle and you took a heavy sheet of parchment paper.
You don't want to use like typing paper.
No, it'll burn up too quick. And you put it close enough to the flame that it becomes scorched by the flame, but not burnt. Mm-hmm. And you move it around and just kind of, unfocused, meditating on whatever your question is. If you have a question. And then you take it, and once the burns kind of settle in, you read the patterns of the burns. So we had done one together, right? Mm-hmm.
No, we did separate ones.
Whose was it then?
It was yours.
It mine?
Yeah.
So it was mine. And my memory's horrible, by the way. I don't know if I said that. We were looking at it, and we're like, yeah. Don't see much.
Don't really see a whole lot. Just a bunch of patterns of smoke.
So then we went around the class, and we were, would rotate groups and let other people look at your picture.
See if they saw something.
And somebody looked at mine, and they said, oh, it's upside down. And they turned it over. And when they turned it over, there was a woman, and this was when we'd only been together for maybe, 6 months? No.
Yeah, no, it was longer than that.
Longer than that. Coming up on a year.
Yeah.
But less than
a year. I was what, 27?
So.
28?
Yeah. We were just starting to date.
Yeah.
And they turned it over, and plain as day is a woman standing there with long flowing hair behind her. And it's like, wow, that even the silhouette of it looked just like her. And it was like, whoa, that's crazy. And then somebody goes, oh, but look inside the hair. And when you looked inside the hair, you saw, again, plain as day, we still have this thing and I've taken pictures of it. Mm-hmm. You saw, plain as day, a little baby wrapped up like in a papoose. Like an old Indian papoose.
Like a baby face.
It was a bundle, and then there was a little head and little eyes. Mm-hmm. And it was sitting there, just a little baby inside the hair. It was like weaved into the hair. Mm-hmm. And we were like, that's crazy.
And Charles said, might you be having a baby?
No. We're not having a baby.
Absolutely not.
And a week later,
No, it was like 2 weeks.
2 weeks later, we found out she was pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
And she was pregnant,
At the time
or
we
would
did
have
the
been
reading.
at the time we did the reading. So that was crazy.
Pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Cool story.
It's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Pyromancy works. Back to reading of smoke. Little thing that my mom told me when I was little. I don't know if you've ever heard of the expression "smoke follows beauty," but my mama was a smoker. And I despised it. I despised the smell of smoke. I hated it. She never smoked in the house, never smoked in our vehicles or anything like that. But when she did smoke, it would always follow me. Always. And it would drive me nuts. And I would move to a different direction and the wind would shift and the smoke would follow me. And it would still just drive me crazy. And she would always tell me, well, Mija, smoke just follows beauty. And so that's something that sticks with me today that I remember. And even now when I'm at a campfire, it's a symbol for me, from my mama, kind of saying hello.
My dad used to tell me something really similar, but
Really?
It was smoke follows trouble.
That too.
It's true. Yeah, so smoke divination.
Yeah, cool stuff.
When I teach my alchemy class and we get to the point where we are calcinating or burning the material of the herb, I always encourage students to, as they burn it, to watch the smoke for any symbols. Because you definitely, as you're going through the alchemical process, you have a purpose. There's a reason you're creating the tincture. You're looking for a specific outcome. Mm-hmm. And so looking for something related to that outcome in the smoke, a lot of students actually see something that appeals to them and that feeds their purpose that they're working with that tincture
Absolutely.
for.
Or even within the ashes themselves, after everything's been calcinated, mm-hmm. just looking at the ashes and seeing different patterns within that, different symbols, faces, or clues as to a question you had.
How about clouds?
Clouds!
Looking
How many of
clouds?
us have done that? Yeah, finding different faces in clouds or animals in clouds. That's something that we do all the time. Our kids do all the time. I think it's something we're all familiar with. But it is a very powerful form of divination. On that note, I was talking on divination earlier. It was this weekend on Ed the Pagan Show about divination, different forms of divination for the Mystical Minds Convention. And got me to thinking, as I was doing some research and reading some of my books, on whether or not something like meteorology would be considered divination. Sean said, well, no, I don't think so. And I started thinking about it. Well, is that not reading patterns within the weather, reading air, barometer, pressures, different things within the air itself, how cloud movements change, how things within the ground and within the air interact with each other. Something like a farmer's almanac I find very divinatory. So I don't see why meteorology wouldn't be as well.
Yeah.
It is scientific, but it is using tools to determine patterns. I don't know. Do you think meteorology is divination?
Yeah, could be. What do you guys think? Drop us a line. Let us know. I had one more.
What else you got?
I don't know. I was trying to think. Oh, I know what I was going to say. At our old house, the walls were like the knockdown stucco. And we used to lay in bed. And on our ceiling, we had a dinosaur.
We had Barney, not just a
dinosaur. It looked just like Barney.
It was Barney. And so...
Did you see that? So could you look for something like that in patterns on walls?
Absolutely. I think within anything, again, it's kind of that unfocusing your attention, unfocusing your eyes to see beyond a surface, to see beyond something. So that's another thing. I think that there's divination everywhere. You can find information if you're looking hard enough. Now, that's not to say that you want to force things where there aren't things, or forcing some sort of gnosis where there is none to be found. Just a word of caution. Not everything means something. Not everything is an omen. I know, I'm saying that to myself, and I'm probably the most superstitious person I know.
I'm going to have this on video to refer back to from now on.
I do. Everything means something. And I'm like, what kind of magician are you? But he's like, that doesn't mean anything. Oh, yeah, it does. I have a lot of superstitions that I make my children follow and listen to. I'm like, why are you walking around the house with just one shoe on? Don't do that. Do not put your purse on the floor.
She threw her chancla.
I throw chanclas all the time, though.
That's why she had one shoe on.
No, I don't do that. Molly does that, and it drives me crazy. You know what bad luck that is?
Well, I don't think we have any other divination types. I think we covered everything we had.
No.
I mean, there's obviously a lot. There's a ton of
tons
types
of things
of
you can
divination.
do, and you can combine them. Like I was saying, using tarot or cards within a bone reading or a pendulum within a tarot reading, mix and matching those. Geomancy is a form of mixing alchemy and a form of earth divination. So there's a whole lot of alchemical symbolism within geomancy.
I'll throw out one more.
Yeah.
Enochian chess.
Oh yeah. Yes.
It's a
how
it's
would
a
you
game
use that
it's
for
a game
divination?
that you play, and so of course this really only relates if you practice or work in the Golden Dawn system, because each of the pieces on the board represent one of the god forms used in the grades, and you play. It's literally a four-handed game of chess with four people, although you can play a two-person version where one person is playing two of the colors. You play, and then depending on the outcome, the god forms that are still on the board and which square they're on are red, and you get a divination for whatever the purpose was. It's a lot to go through to get a divination. There's also magical work you can do with Enochian chess, but Enochian chess is a form of divination.
Yeah. Cool. Well, that was a lot.
Yeah, that's all I got for now.
That's all I got. If you have any questions or anything else that you want to discuss here on Daily Dose, let us know. I will shoot some links over onto some of these tarot decks that we've mentioned, some of the books that we've mentioned. And if anybody has a clue as to what that bibliomancy meant for you, let us know.
Sounds good.
Yay!
Thanks for joining us, guys, and we will see you tomorrow.